Hello and welcome to the Newbie Club Festival Edition, where we highlight the top 10 finalists from Nukhufest. I'm Sanjay, the founder of Nuku, and I'm joined by another 2025 finalist, Daisy Friedman, the director of a short film titled Unholy. How are you doing today, Daisy?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, it's an honor. So why don't you tell us about your film?
Yeah, so my film is a short film, like you said. It's called Unholy, and it's about a girl who goes to her family's Passover Seder for the first time since being put on a feeding tube for a chronic illness. And it's loosely based on my childhood as a transplant recipient.
Wow, that's amazing. So a very personal story, I guess. Where would you say the inspiration to finally tell it came from?
Yeah, I mean, I there's always sort of been this like story in my family of like me being very young and not being able to eat at various meals and I was so young I didn't really remember. And there's sort of this story that my grandma tells, and it did make its way into the film, about how I used to have this list of all the foods that I would eat one day when I could. I was at dinner with my grandparents and my best friend and her grandparents, because our grandparents are best friends, and they were telling this story, and everyone was kind of laughing around me, and it sort of occurred to me at that moment that like something I've been kind of laughing about and joking was like kind of no longer funny to me, and like really something that I kind of wanted to reclaim for myself and really think about like if I don't have the memory of this thing, like how through writing, how through art can I kind of reclaim that. And so it sort of started there with like a little bit of seed of rage, familial rage, and kind of grew into this incredible process. And I wrote the first draft of what was then a short story for a class in college. And then it blossomed into a film from there,
That's amazing. Wow. So it's a cathartic experience, I guess.
for sure.
So, what would you say some of the challenges were you faced while making it?
I mean, it was my second film. So it was the first time I had had a cast more than two. My first film had two people in it. And I think thinking about the dynamics and thinking about the way that the character relationships would work on screen and how it would work in relation to camera, I think was very, very difficult, especially that dinner scene. The way that we choreographed that, I like coming into it, had no idea how we were going to do that. And my incredible producer and I, one of my producers, made like a map, a dialogue map, from like almost about all of the improv, because we knew we wanted really heavy improv in that scene, and sort of tracked like where the camera was going to go versus where who was speaking and what they were speaking about, and like kind of orchestrating that into like a really, it almost felt like a dance, like a choreographed scene. And I think managing all of those people and those characters, both in the writing and the directing and in the cinematography, was difficult, but it was great. We figured it out.
Wow, what an interesting insight into the behind the scenes. I think you did a really good job at that dinner table scene because it feels really natural and organic, like an actual dinner table scene would happen. And you can definitely tell, your main character's isolation in that moment, the way the character
Yeah.
is placed and the camera movements. I think you performed very well in that scene.
Well, thank you so much.
So, in terms of your approach or style as a filmmaker, how would you characterize it? And where would you say that your influences come from?
It's a great question. I mean, really, I think so much about acting and writing first and the emotionality. And I think I would really like to think as like, I don't know, snooty is the word, but like, I think I'm an actor's director. And I know that's kind of a weird thing to say, but like, I really connect to acting. I used to act growing up. I thought I was going to go to college for acting, took a different path. But I think the heart of any film is the writing and is the acting, and that's sort of where I like to ground myself. And I think because of that, I'm really drawn to Noah Baumbach and the early mumblecore scene, and early softy brothers like Daddy Longlegs, things like that that are really kind of grungy and truthful and really center performance. I love John Cassavetes, Agnes Varda, all of these people that really thought about camera and thought about the visuals, but really knew that how to tell a good story was to have good acting and to have really, really great writing.
Absolutely. Those are great influences, and you can definitely see that reflected in your work, the thought that you placed into all of those elements. I think it's excellent. So, we've talked about how, this film is a very personal story. Do you think that making it has changed you at all as a person, as a filmmaker? Maybe you can and share with us some things that you've learned in the process?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed me. I think my pursuit as a filmmaker has sort of gotten tried my intention has been to get me closer and closer to, like, telling some really truthful story about myself, about my life, and I think my first film started kind of exploring those things through a different, very fictional lens, and then this kinda got me much closer to my real lived experience, and then my next film that I actually just finished shooting yesterday, um, was based on a very real, very intense story that did happen to me. And I think like this film really, I think, opened me up to being very vulnerable and very raw. And I think using that as a good thing and as kind of a part of like my brand as an artist, I think it was something I really like ran from for a while because it was very scary. But I think like with the reception of Unholy, like people want these kind of stories and people are like no one knows about this stuff, no one like I could go on a very big tangent about like the chronic illness disability representation, but it sucked for so long. And like I think really realizing that being vulnerable and being truthful is sort of the heart of being an artist. I think that's what it's taught me and what I've absolutely taken into my other work.
Oh, I love that. You know, that's you're right. There is a lack of representation for chronic illness, and I think more quality storytelling around it is important, especially films like this, like Unholy. For it to be, you know, one of your first films, it's wild because you can definitely see the level of craft here. Outside of maybe the greater issues about chronic illness that you like to put forth, is there any other takeaways that you want your audience to have while after having watched the film?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like you never know what people are going through. And I think like the chronic illness aspect of the film, you can substitute literally any like difference for Noah's character. And I think just like the question we've been thinking about a lot in making it and now in putting it out into the world has been like, how do you make tradition accessible when it's no longer accessible to you? And I think that is can be physical accessibility, can be emotional accessibility, can be all of these things like queerness in the Christian community as well as trans like there's so there's so much depth to otherness in culture and in religion especially. And I think like one thing we want people to take away is like how to make space for that and how to treat people who are other in some way anyway as people and to not make things such a big deal as I've experienced, as I know many other people have experienced in other various capacities, and to kind of just like, I don't know, meet people where they're at and like not be weird. um, yeah.
I love that. I love that as a means of, you know, preserving tradition in a non-judgmental way. I think that's really important, an important takeaway, an important perspective to have.
Yeah.
So, how do you see the landscape for independent filmmakers now in terms of opportunities? As you know, having just made this film, making another film, where do you kind of see the opportunities lying?
It's rough out there. I don't know. I mean, it's gotten increasingly harder. I think finding people who support you, finding programs that support you. I mean, I was able to make this new film through an amazing program here in New York City called UFO, which is the Untitled Filmmakers Organization. It's a short film lab, sort of almost like grad school, where you make two films over the course of almost a year and a half, and they partially fund you and just like it's such a gift. And I think like the way to do it is to not wait for anybody to say yes to you, to kind of just do it. I mean, this is a longer story, but my first short film sort of came about because I had originally asked for an internship in college and then they said no, so I asked them if I could pitch them a film, which was like psychotic as a 19-year-old. Like no one should be doing that. But actually, everyone should be doing that. I really do think everyone should be doing that. But I think, like, especially the younger generations and myself included, are like really scared of just kind of like asking and like getting on the phone with people. Sometimes that connection and just putting yourself out there is really scary. But like, literally, you just have to hustle, and that is the only way it gets done. And to be brave and like the worst that can happen is someone says no. And I think rejection is scary, but like you gotta cope with it. Like it's a business of rejection. And I think surrounding yourself too with people who are better than you and people who are more skilled than you and to not have ego about it. And I think to find a it kind of sounds woo woo, but like really to find a greater purpose in what you're doing. I think like so many people want to make movies and that's beautiful and everyone should be making movies. But I think the people that are really able to rise to the top are the people that really have something meaningful to say. And I think, especially in indie filmmaking, I mean, people with money connect to people who are passionate. And I think the only way to be passionate is to find something to be passionate about. And yeah, to just go for it.
That's phenomenal advice, Daisy. You're right. It's such a great take on trying to create your own destiny, manifest your own future. Thank you so much for sharing with us and for
Yeah.
participating in Nukhufest. Is there anything else that you wanted to add for our viewers before we wrap up? Your socials, where to find you, how to get in
Oh my
touch?
God. Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to find me on Instagram, it's at Daisy Friedman underscore, and I'll just plug my new short. On Instagram, it is The Slut Film, I think. And the full title is called How to Be a Slut Without Dying. So it'll be interesting.
That sounds awesome. So, is that the next project you're working on, or is there another project after that that you're working on?
I mean, I literally just wrapped yesterday, so that's going to be what's on my mind for the next few months. But the way that my program works is there will be another film after that. I'm not totally sure what that will be yet, but right now my priority is this film that I just shot.
Okay, well, good luck. And be sure to check out Unholy on Nuku.com, watch and vote for it, and follow Daisy to learn more about her upcoming projects. Thank you again so much, Daisy, and good luck in Nuku Fest.
Thank you. Bye, guys.